result was that big. I still have question marks whether or not that's the consistency of Penn State or it was just a poor performance by Pitt, similar to what Notre Dame had against Ball State, that was the influence as far as that result. Of course, there's still a few landmines I think that Penn State still needs to deal with before they get to Ohio State. I think the Kent State game potentially could be a little bit scary, considering it's a similar team to Appalachian State from the Sun Belt. And then you never know, our buddy Lovie Smith could give Penn State a run when they head to Champaign the following week. So there's still some work to do before they get to Ohio State. But I think right now, if you're looking for a team to knock Ohio State out of the play as far as winning the Big Ten, I don't think Penn State's the team. I think if you're looking for a team right now, a better bet is probably the Wisconsin Badgers in the other side or the other division.
Well, guys, let's kind of get into some takeaways of week number 2. Certainly, we'll kind of go through these games in no particular order, but let's talk a little bit about the game that, honestly, I guess I'm eating crow or rooster, if you will, in this particular scenario. I actually thought that South Carolina Gamecocks at South Carolina could beat Georgia. I was proven drastically wrong. The Georgia Bulldogs, Matt and Adam, looked hungry. In fact, very, very hungry. And this team that went into William Bryce and slapped around South Carolina, I thought I was looking positive there at the beginning. I thought this was going to be a good game, and I guess you could say it was a good game. But if you were somebody other than me that predicted that Georgia would go 12-0 this year, this was certainly a good start. Adam, what are your thoughts? Georgia, South Carolina, probably not a big surprise to a lot of people, but I just thought this would be one of those games where you just kind of pick the underdog and hope for the best. I just thought South Carolina had what it took to beat Georgia Bulldogs. I was drastically wrong, and I admit my wrongness. Go right ahead, Adam.
I'm never going to bet on Will Muschamp, ever. If Will Muschamp's family's listening, I apologize. His brother can't coach. He's a recruiter. He talks a lot of trash, and that's the extent of it. And now he's not even a good recruiter. Like he's gotten incredible jobs everywhere he's been. And you tell me, like, what has he done? Absolutely nothing. So when it comes down to it with South Carolina, it could be South Carolina versus the Plymouth High School Rockies, and I'm going to take the Plymouth High School Rockies because as long as Will Muschamp's on the side. I mean, any opportunity he's had to show himself, they not only lose, they get murdered, and that's what happens.
Matt, what are your thoughts on that game? I know you and Rick were one of the ones that were shaming me publicly last week for saying that South Carolina could beat Georgia, but what are your thoughts?
Well, not only is Muschamp, out there, woulda, coulda, shoulda, I think the big thing that I gained from it is I think there is a greater maturity level at Georgia's quarterback spot with Jake Fromm as opposed to when he was a true freshman last year. Sure, he had a solid year, but I think the more maturity is present now that he's a sophomore as opposed to a true freshman, and I think you saw that against the Gamecocks this past weekend. So that's only a good sign. And, yes, even though they did lose Nick Chubb and Sony Michel, they still have a lot of firepower at that running back spot, including a breakthrough guy in Elijah Holyfield. So they're loaded for bear both at the run and the pass, and their defense has always been rock solid. I think they're the one team that certainly, if there's anyone that can knock off Alabama in the SEC, the Dogs certainly have the best chance to do it.
Well, we'll see how that goes. I'm not a Bulldog hater, as a matter of fact. The cute little puppies, as a matter of fact. But I just thought that the Gamecocks had what it took. Matt, we'll start with you on this one. Jimbo Fisher, I think, had every right to be a little pissed off. The Texas A&M Aggies gave the second-ranked Clemson Tigers all they could handle, losing 28-26 at College Station. The Aggies got screwed. The Aggies got screwed. First of all, it didn't look like they fumbled the ball when they went into the end zone. And then there was the issue in the back. It looked like, I don't know, it looked like it was left to the pylon. To me, anyway, as a fan just watching the game, I had no hair in that dog, no dog in that, how's that saying? No dog in that fight, I guess is the saying. But I think if I'm Jimbo Fisher, hey, that's my win. You took it away from me. And we talked about the refs just a little bit earlier. Well, this could be one situation where this could be looked at again and again and again. And I think we see that Jimbo Fisher had every right to be angry. Go ahead, Matt.
Thing is, though, you keep looking at that replay, and even then I'm still not sure whether or not that was in or out. And when it's a situation like that, if you are a referee, you better be darn sure it went out before, if you're going to reverse a call like that. Because if it had gone the other way, I'm sure Dabo Sweeney would have been equally mad had the call been reversed the other way. So in that situation, they were correct to call it an inconclusive play, and the call stood.
Adam, what are your thoughts? Did the Aggies get screwed?
I'm kind of agreeing with Matt on this one. That's one that, whichever way it first went, is the way that I feel like it had to stand. It was so non-conclusive. I personally felt like it went left of the pylon, so out at the 1-inch mark, but it was so close. I could see it either way. Texas A&M also shot themselves in the foot in the first half kind of repeatedly. So it's always hard to blame a referee on something that would have come down to the very end. But, that's what happens sometimes. I can see both cases. Personally, I'm not a fan of Jimbo or Dabo either way. I didn't have a dog in the fight either, but I can understand the consternation of that Texas A&M fans would have felt, feeling like they got robbed. I'm not going to say either way that they did, but it was a brutally difficult call. There are very few, in my opinion, hairline 50-50 calls in a football game over the course of the season. That was one of them where I don't know either way if you could choose. You could watch it 100 times and you'd never feel good about either way.
Well, just one of those things, but I just think that with Jimbo Fisher, just needed to have that win, just needed to get that monkey off his shoulder. So let's talk a little bit. Adam, we'll go to you. Kellen Mond grew up before our very eyes. Mond put on a Manziel-type performance, going 23 for 40, 430 yards, and 3 touchdowns. To have a night like he did against the Clemson front four speaks volumes about his potential. This kid is good. Mond, Kellen, good. Adam, what say you?
Kellen Mond was extremely highly recruited coming out of high school. I know he was recruited by Ohio State, USC, and some of the other major powers before he ended up settling on Texas A&M. But he's really good. The thing about Clemson is that you can get the ball out quickly. This year, I don't think they have the secondary that they've had in the past. They have that great defensive line with Christian Wilkins and Dexter Lawrence and some of their other pass rushers, but I don't know if their secondary, at least at this point in the season, is as good as they've had in the past. So he was able to, get rid of the ball quickly, even though get him on some double moves when he had a little bit more pass protection. So I think it's a susceptible defense, but Kellen Mond put on one heck of a performance. And if he can keep building on that, Texas A&M is going to be in good shape, and could shock a lot of people in the SEC West this year.
Well, we'll see. That's certainly going to be one of the games that's going to go on to his NFL recruitment tape. Matt, what are your thoughts on this Kellen Mond? Dude's a super stud.
If you're comparing him to Manziel, he's got the arm strength. I don't know if he's the dual threat that Manziel was, but I don't know if they need him to be because they're decent at the running back spot as it is. But, you look at that SEC West, I mean, there is some possibilities out there, but the fact of the matter is you still have Mississippi State to deal with, and I think a couple other contenders in the mix as well that also look a little bit in the mix here that you still have to deal with before you even get to some of the power players. So ultimately, the opportunity is there. But I think if you're looking for a favorite in the SEC West, I don't know if it's necessarily the Aggies.
We're talking with Matthew Embury of 96.1 WSBT up in South Bend, Notre Dame affiliate. Also, we're talking with Adam Jivden, Ohio State Buckeye fan, Cleveland Browns fan. all-around college guru, and Adam knows his stuff, and welcome to have him on our panel tonight. One more game I want to get you, Adam, but I'm going to give you 5.2 seconds to brag on your Cleveland Browns. They lost their losing streak is over, although it was to a tie. I know that our buddy Kyle is a big Steelers fan, and I was trying to stir the pot. It wasn't working too good. But real quickly, in 5.5 seconds, we don't want to get too far off in the weeds because this is, after all, Breaking Rink College Football Show. Thank you for joining us. 917-899-85816 is our digits. Anyway, selfless promotion. Go right ahead, sir.
Myles Garrett's a beast. The defense is really amazing. If Tyrod Taylor doesn't improve, I'm ready for the Baker Mayfield show to begin. 5.5 seconds, done.
Done. Okay. All right. We're going to the next game here of last week, and then we'll go on into week 3. Matt, we'll start with you. The SEC West looks elite again. Again, Alabama won by 50, but hello, look at who they were playing. Won by 50 points for the second straight week. Auburn dropped 60-plus. LSU won 31-0. Mississippi State won by 21, and Texas A&M took the number 2 Clemson to the wire. We already talked about that game, and the SEC West is the best division in the country. I think I have them ahead of the Big East and the SEC West in the 5 deep right now. I think 3 out of your top 4 is going to be looked at very, very closely this year, Matt. Matt, are you with us?
Yeah, I'd say right now the big win has to be Mississippi State going into Manhattan, Kansas, and beating the Kansas State Wildcats. I mean, granted, Kansas State is not one of the top teams in the Big 12, but nonetheless, they are still a potent threat in that division, and Mississippi State easily handled them. They got a quick 17-0 lead, and they just never looked back from the rest of the way in that contest. But then you look at Kansas State, amen to Kansas. They finally managed to win a game on the road against Central Michigan last week.
Adam, what are your thoughts, SEC West?
You know, SEC West it's a stacked division once again. I thought perhaps the Big Ten East would be they're equal, and I don't think that's the case. I think Michigan's not nearly as strong as some people thought, which is totally fine with me. Penn State doesn't look as strong yet because, again, we don't know really where they stand. Michigan State went out and lost to Arizona State and then it struggled in week 1 against Utah State. So I think I would say the SEC West is definitely the best. What I very well could see happening is one of those scenarios where Alabama, Auburn, and LSU kind of all beat each other while also simultaneously beating up on Texas A&M. And it could be interesting to see what the tiebreakers are to determine who goes to the SEC championship game this year.
Well, we'll certainly be monitoring and see what happens. One of the other things that we are monitoring tonight as the show goes on is Hurricane Florence. My son's down in North Carolina in the midst of it all. He's going to ride it through, but that's a whole other thing. But obviously what we're going to see here is we're going to see some college football games affected drastically about that. So we'll talk just a little bit about some of the games that are moved that I know about. Georgia Southern at Clemson has been moved up to noon on Saturday. ECU at Virginia Tech has been postponed. The number 14 West Virginia at North Carolina State is postponed. Marshall at South Carolina has been canceled. Southern Miss at Appalachian State has been postponed. Ohio at Virginia relocated to Vanderbilt Stadium in Nashville. Boston College at Wake Forest moved to 5:30 on Thursday. UCF at North Carolina is postponed with no reschedule. Campbell at Coastal Carolina moved to Saturday at 2 p.m. and there's probably a whole other list of things, teams. But those are the main ones. Real quickly, guys, thoughts on Hurricane Florence and its effect on college football. But most importantly, this is a storm that people need to take very, very seriously. If you're listening to us in North Carolina, we're a national show. North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, in that area, Georgia.